cycle. This whole mutation that was caused by severe environmental distortions that were done through black hole technologies over many, many eons, all of this has literally closed that passage. It closed the birthing passage to Eden, first of all, where nothing from there could incarnate out here anymore. And it closed our ability to be able to enjoy that level of orgasm, either with ourselves or, the big one, was when you could combine it with a sacred mate, particularly a twin that had compatible coding to your own, where you could make what are called transharmonic ruta keys, which are bigger keys than just harmonic keys that a singular body can make. When we work with these technologies now, we are getting back the ability to do this. We are getting back the ability to open the natural transit passage. Now, it's a birthing passage if something's coming from the Edens out here, but it's also the other way birthing passage that we can birth back into the Edens, back to the Garden of Edens, where we came from, back through the gates with our bodies, if we can reach a level of clearing the mutation out of the bodies by the time starfire occurs on the universal Vecca level. Starfire is going to occur, and we're still stuck someplace between as soon as 3 days to maybe 2014 to at latest 2047. All right? So there is going to be an event that changes this solar system and this universe and this planet. And there are people that are going to be able to go back and ride the crystal spiral back into Eden with starfire, which will allow them to rebirth out on what would be considered the new Earth and into the new solar system, which is just a rebirth of the original imprint. Or they will go into black hole fall. And that is what we're facing on this planet. Now, a lot of you may know that because you've been following the work. If it's new to you, don't let it scare you to death. There's a lot of work you could do to understand it better. I will wrap that up tomorrow, probably toward the end of tomorrow, because I am going to touch on tachyon cycles again. I am going to show you the star-burn cycle in relation to tachyon cycles, because the tachyon cycles that we talk about in the natural first creation process are the same processes that naturally take place when your sexuality is functioning properly, and is the same key building process. And these are the same keys that when people like Enoch talk about keys, they talked about them. Enoch tends to talk about them in very convoluted language, but doesn't explain exactly what are these things. We have explained what they are, right down from where you have a first particuli to where particuli make quantum sparks of Jaleesic radiation, and those form other things, and then they combine and form keys. So there's a whole process of physics involved here, where there was never ever a real separation between science and spirituality. But right now what we have on this planet is a shame on both counts, because it is not science, it is half science, and it is not spirituality, it is half spirituality. So all of these things, just for the new people, please know there's a huge amount of data that links all the dots together. What I want to do now is just move through this set of diagrams to give a quick leap to the point where we can talk about the mutation once we see the diagrams, because this is a sacred sex workshop. And the second thing you need to learn after what was learned in Denver, which was how your light body directly connects to the first eternal creation process and directly to source, is how your light body and the parts that you know as your sexual organs have been functioning under a mutation caused by the environment, so you can begin the process of healing that. And once those two things are accomplished, and you start to understand what mutations take place when, if you're mutated and you have a partner who's mutated, when you get together and join your energy fields, yeah, you're going to make keys. They're going to be mutated keys. They're going to be keys that can be harvested, radiation quantums that can be harvested and used for black hole technologies, or for birthing races that have reverse matrix DNA templates so fallen angelics can incarnate into them, and those kind of things. We have been just totally sideswiped here as far as at our planet, as far as what has happened. We are in the death throes of a planet that has been under attack for a very long time. But what's nice is we are still standing, and we still have the ability, at least some of us, to pull out of this, to ride the crystal spiral back home through the natural starfire process when this planet goes through it with the rest of this universe. And we will one day be able to sit in a much nicer place and look back and remember this. And at that point, we will be considered as elders, because very, very few people actually get out of systems that go this bad for this long, where a fall takes as long as this one has, which has been billions of years in terms of linear time as it is perceived in a density system. The chances of anybody, even one, getting out are very slim. There are many, many thousands, if not a few million of us that can still get out and talk about it later. And we will be the elders when we return, because though the ones we look to now, from the middle domains and the inner and the core domains, they know much more than we do here. But one thing they don't know directly, they are in there. They don't know all the nuances of what it means to participate in a fall and live to tell. So we will be respected as equals when we go back to those places, just so you know. Anyway, next one. First one. Next one. First one. Yes, and there's not a lot of these tonight, because I was going to, if I'd started, it would have, there's probably about 60 graphs first, and then we were going to get to these, right? So what I did was hop, skip, and jump through the key, most important things that tie into the conversation that we're having tonight, so we can go right to understanding the sexual parts, so we can go right into the activation when they say it's time to do the activation on the peak of the magnetic peak. Oh dear, heats, excuse me. Here we go, striptease time. It'll probably only be 5 minutes, then I should put it back on because I'll get colds. It's been going on for a week. Okay, now, very quickly. If you're new, I don't know how new you might be, but this is a very old chart that explains the basic structure of what's called the stairway to heaven. I'm not going to go through it hugely, but if you'll notice, it is all formed on the Cathara grid structure, interwoven, embedded Cathara grids. These are on a universal level. If we are here on planet Earth is in one very small location in a solar system and a galaxy that is called Density 1. Density 1 exists down here in this one little Cathara grid here. This is called one Vecca quadrant. All right, Vecca quadrants stick together. There's a Vecca quadrant that has a density system, and it has 4 density levels in the density system, and you have over here the primal light field that goes with that particular Vecca. So you have 2 Vecca quadrants, one a primal light field. This is the PCM primal light field. This is our PCM density field, and we are down here. Our whole galaxy is located in density 1. This is just showing you how the Cathara grid structures, the core bones of creation, actually build up to form where you have 2 Vecca quadrants that stick together. So you actually have 4 Vecca quadrants. That forms the inside of what's called an Eka-Vecca system. It forms the Vecca part. Remember, we're down here. When we get next going upward, this is the stairway. This is the ascension process from the outer domains. This is before we ever got into talking about the hubs or the middle and the inner and the core domains. This is after all those things happen. If creation starts at source, then you have the core domains that manifest, then you have the inner domains that manifest, which are called the hubs, then you have the middle domains which manifest, which are called the Edens or the Jadans of Edens, then you have the outer domains that manifest, and together they are collectively called the Yucatharista body. All right, this is the structure of the bones of the Yucatharista body only. This was the old way of ascension, the long way, when you could still go vertically up from the density system you were in down here. Right now, our Vecca is falling, which means it is cracking, its axis has cracked from its connection to its core, which means it is going into black hole fall, and anything that's going to get out has to go out through the Edon, which means it has to go in, because it cannot make it up the stairway to heaven anymore from the Vecca level into the Eka core, and then into the larger Akasha structure, and then to the Akasha A structure, and into the Akasha Aya, which is the top level of the Yucatharista outer domains creation body. Now, all of these, wherever you see a Cathara grid, you will see light cells around them. But by the time you get all that put into any one of these, you can't even see what the diagram is showing anymore. So we call these the bones of creation, and this is the outer stairway to heaven. Now we are going to have to go from here, where normally we'd go up to density 2, then density 3, then density 4. Then we'd be able to pass through the Eka center and go into what we're referred to as inner earth and those kind of things. That was our earth is actually down here, but it was a connection through inner earth that takes you into the inner Eka. And from there you could progress from the Eka up to the Akasha, which would be here, and into the Akasha A, and then into, which is this, and then from the Akasha A into the Yucatharista, the full Yucatharista body. And then, from there, you would usually take the core center flame home, and from there, go into the Edon cycles, and then you would travel the middle cycles. And after you finished all those, came down into manifestation, then came back up again. Then from there you could go into the inner hub cycles, and from there you could go, after you finish those, you could go into the core cycles. So this is a long journey. This is a really, really long path of experiential hologram in space-time systems that you could have. There are also shortcuts, fortunately for us, because under certain circumstances, the gates that link the outer domains and their light cells to the middle and then the inner and then the core, under certain circumstances they open. One of the circumstances that occurs naturally under certain conditions is called starfire, and that's what we are headed for on the universal Vecca level. Our entire 4-density universe has lost its connection to its Eka core. It is going to go black hole fall, and under those circumstances, whatever is remaining that can hold a Christic imprint is being prepared to have the gates that go inward from each density level into the Edon level behind it, so they can ride starfire, which is the crystal spiral, into the next level and then rebirth back out. Because the Vecca system, the outer Vecca system, will be reborn again in its natural order. And the parts that have fallen will not disappear or vaporize immediately. They will simply shift into a different angular rotation or particle spin in the area that they fell. And they will have a finite lifespan. It may be billions of years, but it will still be finite because they can no longer run the main vertical currents that run and perpetually cycle between Source and the manifest body of Source. So in a nutshell, this is the stairway to heaven of the outer. We are now going to take a shortcut from density 1, step 1, down into the Edons, so we can continue our evolutionary cycle and not end up stuck in the black hole fall. Next one, please. All right. If we look closer at that stairway to heaven and just come back down to this one little Cathara grid here, all right, that would be our PCM density system. Density 1, density 2, density 3, and density 4. Over here would be our PCM primal light field. Up here would be the antiparticle PKA primal light field, and over here would be the PKA density system, which is the parallel to our Vecca system. In this system, there was a parallel Earth that was the counterpart of our Earth. There's a lot of history that we have been following this, just so you know, for people who are new. So I'm not going to cover a lot of it now, but there's lots of workshops that explain those relationships, probably in more detail than you'd ever want to know. So it is there, just so you know. What I wanted to show you, because what I want to get you fast from, is the stairway to heaven, realizing it is cosmic structure. The cosmos is structured on the light body structure. It is the manifest body of Source. And that is not Source alone. That exists within the vast, unmeasurable consciousness field that is Source. It is a small part of it that is made manifest, and eternally so. But when we come back down to just our little Vecca quadrant here, and when you have the 4 Vecca quadrants together, it creates what's called an Akasha system. So this is our Akasha system with our 4 Vecca quadrants within it, and inside would be our Eka core inside here. What I wanted you to see about this is, before we had just the bones of creation, now what you're seeing is there are spheres. Spheres of energy. These are the light cells, part of the structure of the light cells of the cosmic body, or the local cosmic body. We have density 1 down here. All right, density 1, ignore this one here. Density 1 is this sphere here. That's called the density 1 radial body. Even the new people have probably heard a bit about the fact that we have a radial body, because we taught a bit about radial body in Merkaba in, I believe it was the end of Cathara 1. So this is where that material of Cathara 1 plugs in. We have a radial body. In every radial body, there are what are called Huva bodies. This is where we get our 5. Ignore that one for now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have the 8 Huva bodies, the 5 Ariya Huva bodies, and 3 Useta Huva bodies. That's where they come in. These are part of the light body structure of the universe, not just your own, but it's also part of your own, because everybody has a light body structure that is a microcosmic reflection of the macrocosm. So I wanted you to see this part here and how it connects, where all of these Vecca quadrants have that same structure. All of these have names, and we have charts that have the names on all of those. I'm not going to go through that right now. I just wanted to remind you of structure. Next one, please. Now, what you just saw, if you ignore these, outside, right? You saw this part. There's PCM Vecca quadrant, PCM primal light field, pKa primal light field, and pKa density, right? So that's the 4 Vecca quadrants. That's still our Akasha system. And out here, these are, I call them the OSs for short right now. This is where we begin to get different types of etheric currents. This would be the ethos. We have ethos, eros, and ethos. These catharogrids and their light cell structures phase at certain times with our universal structures, where this catharogrid would come up and merge with that catharogrid, and then this one will come down and merge with that, this one will come in and merge with that, this one will merge with that, and when that happens, they all come in and merge together and literally pull out of manifestation, recharge in their Eka, and then pop back out into the manifest worlds of creation. So the structure of your body is also structured similarly. You would have your density 1 self would be right in here. This would be the density 1 Huva body in the PCM universe, and it would be the density 1 aspect, your physical body, as far as your own light body structure. Next one, please. This is honing in a little bit on if we looked at what we just saw before, where you had one going down, one going up. You also had two going that way and 2 going this way. If this is that center point, that Eka center point, this again is the PCM density grid here. This is the pKa, primal light field, right? This would be the ethos grid going down that way below the PCM, and this would be the eros grid going up. I'm just not showing the ones that are running horizontal, because I want you to see just a close-up on these. Now, there are specific ways that these phase together, and that has to do with the Huva bodies coming together, because you will actually get a density 1 Huva body. In the density 1 Huva body, you have the atomic body and the atomic body, and you have the etheric body of density 1 is actually up here in the same place as the density 2 atomic body. So there's these overlaps of light cells that are actually where you get your etheric levels from and where you get your physical levels from. When you go into, if you're going to go from density 1 to density 2, you would have your density 1 Huva body would merge with its etheric blueprint that's in density 2, that's merged with density 2, and the density 2 body would drop down, and you would have a body in the center here. And all of the diagrams that we've showed, where we showed the embedded catharogrids with your density body and your activated crystal body sphere, that applies to when your radial body is activated. That is flame body activation, but that's only on level 1. Then you'd have another level to do it here. That's the long way. It's the long way of ascension. We are so far past that now, as far as, we were going to start that, but with the drama the way it has unfolded on this planet and in this Vecca, it is no longer an option because we can't go up. In fact, any parts of ourselves that are in the domains up here have to come down through us and through our fields in order to get out through the Edons, because they have gone into reversal. It's actually tilted. I won't even get into the fact that we're already rotated over into the horizontal position now. That's other stuff that we've talked about a long time ago that happened quite a while ago at Heatharo 2003. But anyway, just wanted you to see the structures of the Huva bodies that we talk about, particularly people just coming in. You probably heard of the Huva bodies, so you see where they fit into this more complex structure of light body. Next one, please. This is a bigger close-up. Okay? We're going micro on it. All right? This is, again, your density 1 catharogrid. Okay? And that means your density 1 Huva body is here. And it's in here, you'd actually see your D1, D2, D3, and something called the silver sanctum. Catharogrids, each with a light cell around them. So there's even more complexities, but this is showing you basically where your body is located, down in here. In the density 1 radial body, it's the lower half of the density 1 radial body where the density 1 Huva body is, the not a Huva body. Next one, please. If we go back to looking again up here, that's the primal light field pKa, which is the one on top of our density field PCM here, and here's that same one, our PCM density here. This is simply showing you that even though with the Huva body structure that we have and that we've showed you, and the radial body structures, and these larger bodies around them, and all these bodies have names, we also have, by the 15-dimensional time matrix structure that all of these teachings have started with, they fit in to this structure in this way. These are actually wave bands that run, not just from the Cathara Center 1 to Cathara Center 12 on our 15-dimensional system, but they run up to this, which would be the EUMB point on the pKa, antiparticle primal light field. So this is where you get the arcs that form the ovals that form the 15-dimensional structure. So I just wanted to show you how all those structures fit into that structure, particularly for new people who might just have seen that structure and don't realize the rest of this exists yet. Next one, please. This is a small part of what is called the starborn first creation cycle. This is called the Edan light cell. When we talk about going back to the Jardin of Eden, the Eden is, there is a, let's say creation starts way back at source with the first partikai and then the second partikai, units of the consciousness of source. And from there, this amazing dynamic called the starborn cycle that we'll see more of tomorrow emerges. And at a certain point, after numerous phasing of partikai that make sparks, a certain amount of sparks build, and the partikai pull back in and actually into source and replicate in source, come back out with their replica. So it's a quantum expansion that the universe starts with actually one point, the cosmos starts with one point, and then progressively births out. The Edan is the 1728 cells of the Edan. These are the 1728 keys that we talk about. Each one of these represents a large, on the cosmic level, partikai cell or light cell in the cosmic structure of the middle domains. There's also a set of these. There is an Edan that is an Edan phase connected to the core creation cycle, to the inner one, to the middle one, and to the outer ones. But the middle one itself is referred to as the Edan. So when I talk about Edan, I wanted the people that might not know what I'm talking about at all to at least have a conceptualization of every one of these are spherical light domains that space-time and matter take place and exist within. All right, when we talk about the 1728 cells that are part of your natural incarnational pattern, this would also be the pattern of your cells. It is called a monadic configuration, the positioning of balls, and all of these have names, which is frightening, and I hope I never get that far because that's a lot. And what's scary is there's another structure called the Rashala that is the next phase of expansion of these that has 20,736, which is 12 of these put together. And we even have that someplace, but we didn't need that for tonight, and I don't even know if I have it. Because, see, part of our reference material right now is on a boat on the ocean, because we had to pack up. After the Denver workshop, we had 2 weeks to pack up everything in our house and our office over there, which were in the same place, and put it on a boat and move it over here because we moved out of England. And so a lot of the reference materials that nobody said we'd need for a particular workshop are on the boat for 8 weeks. So we do have the Edan, just so you know. When we talk about the Jardin of Eden, is a particular domain of spherical standing wave universes that are clustered together in a very specific mathematical configuration, and that configuration is called the Edan. All right, next one, please. Can you put that one aside, too, because that one is the one they want to use. Yeah, thank you, honey. Now, we have a basic, really fast crash course in basic bones and cells, or the bones and balls of creation, as I like to call them. The bones are the Cathara grids, and the balls are all of the spherical light cells that are formed. And all of that starts with the first point of creation and the first two partikai. And we'll see the starborn process a bit more tomorrow. Now, when we see that we realize we have a light body structure, the universe has a light body structure, the cosmos has a light body structure, the planet has a light body structure, the galaxy has one, and so does the solar system. When we get to understanding the mutation that we have, it's a good idea to understand that it's caused by what is wrong with our planetary environment, which is when what's wrong with our planetary environment has to do with what's wrong with not just the planet, but with the solar environment and with the galactic environment. And that has to do with black hole technologies that were used literally billions of years ago up in the higher densities, and not too long ago. In fact, they're in the process of being used right now on this planet to finish off the job. So we are talking about a a structure of light body that applies to planets and solar systems and galaxies as well as to individuals. When you have a natural light body structure, you get what's called natural Merkabah structure. Merkabah spirals are simply vortices that are supposed to be part of the natural circulation system of the cosmos, where certain ones, they're never supposed to be same spin spiral sets. You're supposed to have one that spirals clockwise that brings energy into a system, and another that spirals counterclockwise that brings energy out of a system. So it's like a breathing rhythm, a breathing of energy. And the Merkabah structure, wherever you see a Cathara grid, which are the bones, implies the existence of light body cells. The spheres. Wherever you see the spheres implies the existence of the vortices, which are the Merkabah spirals that are formed by the spinning of the spheres that circulate energy in and out of creation. Every level of creation has those core structures. When we come to our planet is supposed to, this little planet in here, has all these fields around it. It's natural density 1 Cathara grid structure, and would have density. It would have a D1, D2, D3, and its density embedded Cathara grids, and Merkabahs. This is showing the natural structure of a Merkabah, how it should look in relation to the Cathara grid. Its axis should run straight up and down vertically, and it should have a horizontal axis as well. This is called the staff, and that's the main vertical current that runs, and this is called the rod, and that's the main horizontal current that runs. What you have at the center is a seed atom. That would be the Azure point in the planet, right at the core of the planet. Now, there's all sorts of fields. I won't go into that heavily now. There's other workshops that cover that. In a natural system, the planet would have the same vertical axis as the sun. Whatever the vertical axis of the sun, all of the planets in that system are supposed to have the same vertical axis, because it creates an open network of energy flow between the staffs and the rods of all of the planetary bodies. It creates what are called the natural arcs and angles, or archangels, if you want to put it that way, in a solar plane. Our solar system started out, well, actually, the original solar system that we are now a part of, let me word it that way, started out in this configuration. If any of you have read Voyagers, Volume 2, you'll know that there's a story about the fall from Tara and how our particular solar system actually are fragments of a planet that was called Tara. Part of it's still there and is called Alcyone now when we look up and see it. And we are the fragments of what was a larger Alcyone that was called Tara. Our whole solar system was a host, an attempt to bioregenerate this planet until it could ascend back and actually reassemble into the body of Tara. That plan has failed. All right, so just so you know where we're at in relation to that. Well, I want you to just touch base and remember these things. It's also remembering something that you will see soon, and this is the Ruche pattern. There's a particular core creation. They call it the crisscross pattern. It's a pattern of energies that is a particular mathematical distribution of core energy currents that forms the core template of creation all the way up at first creation that involves the first particle and all the way out through the domains. And so this natural configuration that fits into a Cathara grid, I don't have it here, it fits naturally into a Cathara grid. It's also known as the monadic configuration because it is the structure of what is called a monad, or the main phasing light cells of a light body structure. So we have this particular pattern of Ruche. It's called the Ruche. This is also the pattern that you will see is the natural configuration for what is called the Ruche spiral. The Ruche spiral is something that runs the vertical current through your body or through a planetary body. Planets have them too. They are a natural configuration of currents where if you took this particular configuration and you're looking at it as if you were looking at a plate this way, a dinner plate. If you turned it this way and you were now looking at a plate like this, if you were standing in the middle of it, it would be around you like this. All right, that Ruche configuration would be there. Where you see those dots, it implies vertical currents running through each of them. All right, so when we talk about the Ruche spiral, as you will see as we go, it's referring to this configuration. This configuration is the core of the divine blueprint configuration. It is not the full divine blueprint, it's the core of the divine blueprint configuration. This is just natural, this one down here is just showing the natural arcs that are supposed to form the natural energy flows and circulations that should be occurring in a solar system or a galaxy between its sun and the planets, all with their vertical axis pointing vertical. And right now we are on a planet where we have the ecliptic, which means our planetary north is not in the same north as the solar axis. It gives us the ecliptic, it gives us the seasons and the equinoxes and all of that stuff, and that is not natural. That is evidence of the fact that we are in a partially fallen already system. Next one, please. This is some more of the things when we saw how we were supposed to have a vertical axis alignment to our sun. Well, if this is the sun over here, this is where we should have our staff running. Our planetary Ruchete should be running this way. Our Merkaba should be standing up nice and straight this way, but it's not. It's tilted here, 23.5 degrees. And there's another part of it tilted 23.5 degrees and 11.5 over here. It creates a set of very unnatural vortices that work like satellite dishes that draw in frequencies from other black hole fallen systems. And it was done on purpose, and it can't be stopped at this point. This is why this planet is going through, or is going to be going through what's called a starfire process, which is a natural immune system response of the light body of source that will literally pull what's still viable back into the level before, which is the Edon levels, the middle domains, and then rebirth it back out in a natural recreation cycle. Anything that cannot hold those frequencies will be set free, and it will fall into the place where it lost its connection to the natural light body structure, and it will remain and stay alive until it burns out the quantum at its core. And at that point, it cannot renew its quantum, so it will go back into space dust. Space dust is back into particle, units of the consciousness of source. So there's two ways to get home. If you do black hole fall, you will go back as space dust, but you can never escape source because you will always go back. When a black hole system implodes and goes to space dust, on the next natural starfire cycle, that space dust will be pulled back in to source and rebirthed out anew. It will just not hold the form or the memory matrix of what form those units of space dust had before they had fallen. All right? So we are not on the space dust path. These workshops are about being on what's called the crystal path, or the path of the crystal spiral, and that is the path of the starfire and return to Edon, so we can participate and keep our templates and our patterns and our cognizant identities as we move through these structures that the universe is going through right now and our planet is going through. I'm not going to get into the heavy, mucky messes because I've covered these extensively in other workshops as far as what does this configuration of 23.5 degree tilt of north do. This would be our geographic north, and that is not natural. It should be here. That is a natural solar axis alignment. What this gives us is the unnatural precession of the equinoxes and all sorts of unnatural planetary configurations, including this set of base magnetic fields, which we refer to as the poison apple. All this is connected to what is called the daisy of death configuration. It has to do with the lotus arcs that are natural part of the phasing configurations of living light bodies that have been actually sprung and pulled and fixed where they can't phase anymore, which means they can't move the light body cells together anymore so the light body cells can spark to generate more quantum. So, the daisy of death system, the poison apple system, which is the configuration of the magnetic fields that are surrounding the planet and the magnetosphere at this time. That is the harness, that is the net we talk about, that we have been held in a prison planet for a very long time now. And this is the final saga, final chapter in this novel as far as what is happening to this planet. And in this particular novel, the Wiesidraks have won because the planet is going to fall Wiesidrak with the solar system. The entire solar system and this Vecca is going to fall Wiesidrak. That's a particular system I won't get into right now. It's an adjacent part of the light body structure of source, not even in our particular time matrix, that a long time ago it fell into black hole status and it chose to become a feeding system, which means it uses antichristic technologies and bends the natural laws of physics in order to tap into other living systems so it can suck energy off them, because the more energy it can draw into itself, the longer it can postpone its inevitable implosion. And that is how we got connected with all this. All of these are a product of what is called Metatronic technology. So if you've ever heard of anybody out there teaching Metatronic science, don't be fooled into thinking Metatron is your friend, because Metatron has done this. Metatron is a collective of fallen angelics that once upon a time was a decent lot, but they fell, and when they fell, they devised a code. It is called the Anti-Christian Code. It is called the Metatronic Code or the Tandem Code, and it creates unnatural energy structures that have the capacity to feed off living systems, and it is a black hole technology. So this is the environmental problem we're referring to, and it's not just Earth. It is affecting the solar system, because the solar plane is not at the right angle in relation to the galactic plane, and the galactic plane is not at the right angle. Even science knows that there appears to be something like a black hole at the center of our galaxy, somewhere around Sagittarius A star or whatever. All right? This is just still dealing with the density 1 level of our singular Cathara grid, right, in our universal level. It has been compromised all the way up to 11.5, and it has caused the cracking of the connection of the natural staff and the Rushite current between the core of living creation that we emerged out of, between our Eka, Veka, and Akasha, and the Veka system. So the Veka is falling, and the parallel Veka has already fallen. So there is nothing even to tap it into to support it. So that's what this is what we're talking about when we're talking about fall. We're not just throwing that term around like an airhead. There are technicals here, and there are some. This is a breeze through on the technicals. There's huge technicals on this. But at this point, what's important is not how bad is it. It's okay, what do we do about it? And that's what the workshops are about. Next one, please. This is some of the messy, I told you that configuration of the combination of the daisy of death, the poison apple, and what's called the demon seed, which is a distortion of the natural seed atom at the core. It actually creates sets of very unnatural vortices that are running. I remember this is the 23.5 degree tilt of we call our north on this planet, our geographic north. And these are the other angles. This should have been the natural angle that north is supposed to point. These are the vortice systems that they are plugged into what is called the tube torus system, which is an unnatural, it's a product of Metatronic code and the Fibonacci sequence and the Fibonacci spiral. We call it Fibonacci because it does just that. It robs systems of chi, or life force energy. And it is also being taught as a great thing to do, and they're teaching you how to activate your Merkabas on it and all sorts of things, certain teachers out there in the New Age movement, so just be careful. All right? This is what we're dealing with, too, as part of our environmental mess. This symbol, the yin-yang symbol, is a symbol for how the currents run when they're in the tube torus configuration. It's all part of the Metatronic code. So if you use this code, and it's really sad because it was considered a sacred code by some of the Oriental races a long, long time ago, they lost the text that explained what it was. It sounded good. It sounded like perfect balance, but it isn't. What it is a symbol code, just like we use symbol code encryptions that will activate certain things in your light body. What this assists, if you look at that and play with that, it assists in activating the Metatronic code in your gene code. So that's all part of this configuration. There are so many pieces to this. It's been fascinating learning about it. And all of this could go right down to details. At some point, you could place exactly where in the atmosphere which band of what was, but if we started doing that, they'd probably make us disappear fast. Because at this point, we are watching the buildup of a war between fallen races. Now, the people here that are being used as the puppet soldiers, it's not them. It's who's connected to their energy fields that's directing their emotional and their mental bodies into fighting wars with each other. There are competing factions at this point for who's going to own what during this black hole fall. We're watching it now again heat up in the Middle East because some of the soul groups involved there are connected to some of these races. Not all of them. And some of them are indigo races that they're trying to use them to hijack in between, because the indigos have very strong codes. And if you want to use bodies to control grids, indigos are great if you can get a hold of them, because they can run a lot more frequency. And if you can get that running on a Metatronic code, you've got quite a little generator there. So there's a lot going on in the politics that is happening right now. It's another step forward in the advancement of the One World Order agenda. The One World Order agenda was always about competing Leviathan or fallen races, the people on the planet being used because they were bred to carry certain strains of Metatronic code. This gets into the mutations that I talked about, that we've been carrying these mutations literally into the birthing process, into the sexual process for many, many generations. We are watching the final product of that. We are watching soul groups move races toward each other. And from what it looks like, it's not going to get much better. So all of it is being controlled through the net. The net has to do with the poison apple fields that are magnetic fields that are actually what we navigate planes by and everything these days, because they are what appear as the natural configuration of magnetics on this planet. They're being controlled remote through these satellite dish vortex systems that are literally plugged into the planetary body. They don't even need to have a big dish sitting on top of the North Pole, because they have these they're not organic. They are formed of natural matter by twisting organic structure into something it was not meant to be. And what's interesting is if your planet looks like this, so do your biofields. Because when you incarnate into a planet, you will take on the configuration of the system. So this is part of what we are healing in ourselves. All of this comes down to a core part of the mutation. And that has to do with what's called the Rouchet spiral, which are the core currents that run through the central vertical column. On a planetary level, we had a Rouchet spiral once upon a time. Next one, please. Okay. I want to see. All right, yeah, I'll go this way. All right, I'm going to put this in here for a second. Now, we had a Rouchet spiral on this planet. We still do, except now it's called the gravitron. All right, it was turned into a reverse spin set of vortices, core currents that would run those big vortices, and it's been activated in the last 2 years. They've progressively activated, and that is what caused the final crack of the link between the staff on this universal Vecca to its Eka core. And that's what was the final weapon in the Metatronic arsenal that, once activated, enabled them to pull this whole system into Metatronic fall. Now, what this is showing you, this is, for those who haven't seen a teleosphere before, the teleospheres are part of natural light body structure that is covered in Cathara 2-3. What I wanted to show you here simply is, I mentioned that our solar system and our planet are hosted. They were fragments of the fall of Tara in density 2 when they fell to density 1. Those fragments were harnessed a long time ago, 550 million years ago when the fall occurred. They were harnessed and brought down, stepped down into density 1 and placed in hopes of regenerating them back where they could ascend, and the beings on them could ascend back into Tara, which didn't happen. They were hosted into a set of stargates. One was Universal Stargate 3 that is called Eartha. All right, URTHA is the original USG3. Now, we've always said Earth is, Universal Stargate 3. That's why it's always been a hot place, for like interdimensional action and that kind of stuff. It's actually Eartha that is the Universal Stargate 3. The planet we call Earth, that we see from space when our little ships go out and take pictures back, that is Earth, and that is the fragment of Tara that was hosted into the larger stellar body called Eartha. That means that we have a little teleosphere and light body structure of our planet here called Earth, and it's been placed inside the shields and light body and crystal body structure of a much larger celestial star called Eartha. It is also an inhabited star, that when you're in certain frequencies, it looks like a planet just like Earth would. But it is still being run Christic. It has not fallen. It does not have its axis cut. Earth is not capable anymore of doing what's called rotting starfire. It cannot go back to the Edens because of the final, the breaking of the staff and its link to its core. It can't run the frequencies required to do so. It would vaporize if if anything tried to bring it through into Eden. However, the larger host shield and the host stellar body that Earth actually exists within. And this means this is actually in our atmosphere. It has to do with the Van Allen radiation belts, where there are crossover points that go into the larger sphere that you can't see if you just take a spaceship and go this way. Different angular rotation of particle spin. You would have to actually align it with the configurations of the natural Eartha angular rotation of particle spin. So there is literally, if you start seeing mirages in the sky, it's not just your eyes or your imagination, because there's bleed-through starting to happen, because they are opening the gates between this crystal body that is falling, this little crystal body of Earth, and this larger crystal body structure, which means light body structure, which means Gathara grid and all that, right? And matter structures, of course, of Eartha. And I just wanted you to see the relationship between them. Here you have Eartha, where it would have its natural vertical axis and its natural horizontal axis. It would have natural Merkabah configurations and all of that. It is connected to Universal Stargate 4, which is called Sala. The thing we call our sun was a part of Terra that was hosted into USG4 Sala. Therefore, our sun has operated as a subharmonic of USG4, just like Earth has operated as a subharmonic of USG3. But the core Stargate, it goes with the big one around it. So the sun is like this too. You have the sun that we see, and then you have this larger structure still at its natural angular rotation of particle spin compared to the natural universal Vecca structure. And so we have Eartha and Sala, and this is where the activations are running from now. Both of these stellar bodies will be doing starfire, which means they will be going on the natural wave that is going to come through this universal Vecca system and take anything that's on its natural, original angular rotation of particle spin and frequency back in to the edons, which are the middle domains. And then they will rebirth out again in a natural cycle, and order will be restored. This is what Revelation was really talking about, with the new earth, the new heavens, and the new earth. And they forgot to mention the black hole stuff. Well, they kind of did, but and very colorfully, you know, fire and brimstone, and you know, things with many heads and wings and all sorts of stuff. That the book of Revelations was a coded story that was trying to tell this story in a time that, if you dared. First of all, most people wouldn't understand a thing you said, because all the Atlantean knowledge had been lost, and science and things that were very known in Atlantis, they weren't known in the time of Christ. So there was a story that was put together in order to try to convey some of what was going on when the end times came. We are in the end times, which are the rebirth times, the starfire times. So I wanted you to understand that here is Earth, here is Eartha. If you're looking at the sun, here is what we call sun or soul, S-O-L. And here is Sala. Eartha and Sala are the places we need to get to in order to ride starfire, because Earth and the sun and the other planets that are connected to that are going to fall Wissarak, black hole system. So our jobs are to figure out how to get to Eartha and Sala, and that is what the beloveds are trying to teach us. And part of this is directly connected to our Rushite spiral, our natural vertical current that we have to get back, and that means clearing the distortions that are held within the core root of our creation, which are the sexual parts. I wanted you to understand one more thing too. Between Eartha and its crystal body and light body and Earth, there is a field of something, a field of energy that was given as a gift a long time ago. It's called the aurora field. This aurora field, I won't get into it heavily right now, but it is a set of frequencies that will allow the beings and things on Earth that actually their imprint is not encrypted into Earth's grids. They're only in Earth grids. Anything on this planet right now, including the angelic humans, we're not part of the Eartha life cycles. We came in later as just part of Earth. We were supposed to ascend back up to Terra and take it from there. If a thing is not encrypted into the natural, that means your radiation signature is not held as a part of the core radiation signature of that planet, you would not be able to ride starfire with it. So this aurora field was given to us a long time ago by a certain set of races called the aurora races, who came through from the inner hubs and came out through, which was not easy to do even way back then because of the distortions in this universal time matrix, but they came through and they set an imprint that would allow for an interface between the Eartha signature and the beings on Earth that could still hold a Christic imprint. Through what are called the lights of Aurora, we can actually encrypt our signature now as it is into the Eartha body, so we will be able to go through eventually those Van Allen radiation belts, do the angular rotation of particle spin shift to end up on the planet where it looks like a planet when you get there. From other areas, it looks like a star, where it would look like it's on fire. But there are certain bands of frequency that would be just like going to a beautiful place on Earth. You even have mountains, and you'd have trees, and you'd have water, and those kind of things. So it would look like a big version of Earth, but in its very pure state. Before there are cities and things, but they don't look like cities here. It is a Christic Earth. And that is the first stop for anybody who is getting out of the black hole fall. They have to get out first through Earth. Anything from here has to get out through Earth. There are a few other systems that have evac stations in density 1. You have Eridanus, I believe, at USG 2, I think has some, but not for our races. So our out is through Eartha, and that would cross over into Sala, which is USG 4. Through those, we will go back into the Edens. So I wanted you to understand when I talk about the word aurora, I'm talking about that field of frequency that was laid in that would allow us to actually imprint, bring in the aurora field into our bodies and then send it back through to imprint our body imprints and our consciousness imprints and our shields into the Eartha core memory banks, into its teliosphere, so we would be recognized by the Eartha body and therefore be able to ride its crystal spiral as it goes back into starfire. So Eartha is hosting anything from this planet, from Earth, that can get out. Eartha is hosting it, and it has to be done through the aurora, the lights of aurora field. Next one, please. Yeah. What was it doing here? I was actually showing the proportions, I think. Yeah. I was showing, on here I was getting a little bit closer to the actual proportions. No, actually it wasn't that one. This was the first one. That one was the closer to the proportions. This is just showing a little bit of the distortions that this, if this was Earth, it's shown much bigger than Earth actually is in relation to Eartha. But if this is Eartha's axis and this is Earth's, and you have the natural, the tonal meridian lines running on the planet, it creates this really wacky set of diagonal grids that actually end up looking like, and I think somebody in Russia has actually discovered this grid. They're kind of like triangular. I don't have this perfected yet. But it's because of the unnatural cross-throughs of the natural planetary lines, meridians, and axiotonals that are running on Eartha, and the unnatural tilt on the ones running on Earth that creates this artificial grid that is an artificial racial grid. And that's what a lot of the other teachings that have to do with Metatron and Thoth and those kind of things, and the Paracletes and things like that, yeah. All of those things are teaching you about using these grids, which are ways to suck energy off Eartha in order to do things on Earth that you're not supposed to. All right. So anyway, next one. Yes, they call it sacred geometries. Spare me. All right, this is just a really quickie to show you when I talk about the Richete spiral. The natural Richete spiral would run the natural north-south axis on the planet. It is a natural Richete spiral supposed to be built on the Ruche configuration, where you have the 4 inner and then the 8 outer. The 4 inner points or pillars in the shield are the what are called the harmonic pillars, and the 8 outside of them are called the octaves, and together they phase in spark. What you have here instead, this is the mutation that is carried in the planetary Richete spiral, which means it's carried in your Richete spiral as well. This is what has formed what is called the gravitron, which is a really nasty vortex that actually linked with a whole set of them that go up the densities up to density 3.5, and they were enough once they were activated together to crack the axis of the entire 4 densities of this universal Vecca. On a planetary level, it means our Richete spiral of the planet has been twisted and tilted. The natural Ruche configuration that should be the shield that each of these things run on has been twisted and mutated into this configuration. All right. This configuration is what you've got down there sitting on top of your Shadi. And it is harnessing the Shadi, and it has blocked all the things I talked about at the mutation are coming out of this configuration. And I'll show you more what it looks like in the sexual organs, but I wanted you to see it is the gravitron configuration that is the mutation of the natural Richete spiral that would run down the center of the planet if it was on its normal axis. Next one, please. Now, a natural Richete spiral is based on this template. you basically have a core one, the 13th pillar in the center, and you actually have 13, 14, and 15. It's actually 15 pillars, but it looks like 12 because you have, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's natural ruche configuration. It is also the template for the ruchete. That's looking at your plate this way. If you turn it this way and it's a shield around you, you would be looking at 6 here in front of you. So you'd have the 6, the 4, 5, 6 configuration should come out in front, and the 12, 11, 10 would be in the back. What this does when you tip it up, can you move this up a little bit, honey? If you look at this as a plate or a shield, right, it creates these spirals. First of all, take them as if each one of these pillars, right, was just a straight pillar, right? But then have all of it spinning. And the center 4 are spinning in one direction, and the outer 8 are spinning in another direction, and each one of them is spinning individually as it spins as a whole. What it creates are these wonderful loops of energy, spiraling currents that are spiraling up and down your central vertical column. It is actually these and these spiraling configurations that undergo an interesting process where at first they simply look like this, where you have the electricals would form these outer ones and this part of the inner ones, and then the magnetics, the inner ones, the 4 inner ones, form these spiraling currents. And this is trying to look at something that's three-dimensional laid out flat. All right, think of it as a spiral of energy. You have a spiral that connects to 8 different points on the outside, and then you have one that connects to the 4 on the inside. And it starts out looking like this, but this has to do with the breathing rhythms, and it has to do with your breathing rhythms too, or a planet's breathing rhythms, that at certain points when it's in complete just stasis, say pause between breaths, not inhaling or exhaling, it would simply run this configuration. It does something different when you exhale, when a planet exhales, or when an expansion cycle is happening, where it actually polarizes. These currents polarize, and they open up what's called a breathing tube down the center. And in that polarization, there form vortices all along the sides, and this is where chakras come from, as you'll see in a minute. But I wanted to show you just the general beginnings of understanding that it is that template, run horizontal, that creates each point on that template is a vertical column of energy. And when it spins, it creates these looping, spiraling columns that are the Ruchete spiral. So everything that has a central vertical column, which means everything that has a Cathara grid and light bodies and Merkabahs and all that, has a Ruchete spiral. All right, next one, he's not there. Thank you. I also wanted you to see something that the old DNA template diagrams correspond directly to this template as well. There's other diagrams from, I think they're in K23, that show how to plug the Ruchete into the 12-pointed clock thing that emerges from it. And the Ruchete controls the DNA template. It is part of the DNA. It actually creates the currents, the spark pulse currents, that become the chemical arrangements and the molecular structure of the DNA itself. When you unravel the DNA and you see the DNA coils, they're like a micro version of the natural Ruchete spiral. Next one, please. Thank you. This goes this way. There we go. Yes, here's where my menagerie started this evening. I'm going to put my jacket on for this. Now I'm getting cold. Excuse me. We're getting close now. All right. Can you shift it over just a little, please, so I can see this? Oh, he didn't take that off yet. He was going to take the white bits off. Can I see? Let me see that a minute, please. Yeah. Thank you. We just didn't get to it because we were in a hurry. There's one. There we go. Thank you. There we go. Now, in simple terms, and this is driving me nuts because the diagrams, bring this over just a little. No, yeah, for now, leave it there. These boxes, when this is finished, they actually do is just a photocopy or cut them off because we have A4 paper from the UK that the diagrams are drawn on, and we have 8.5 by 11 over here, and it's shorter. And we didn't have more time to play with that. But what I have shown you on here is, this is the 0.5 scale. All right, for example, 0.5, this would be 3.5, all right? The EUMB is at 3.5. You would have 3.5, 2.5, 1.5, 0.5. All right, in between the 0.5 scale, you'd have, what, D1, D2. So there's like D2, D2.5, D3, D3.5, D4, D4.5. They're just showing you how to do the dimensional breakout on a Cathara grid. All right, this is useful when you want to see where the chakras are, because the chakras are vortices that form through the Rouchet spiral and its interactions with itself, basically. The currents that are spiraling up and down the Rouchet spiral create the chakras, and they emerge at very specific points. Now, the Rouchet spiral, the outer electricals, form this configuration going all the way up. There would be what are called 15 dimensional shields. There's actually more of them. You have double shields for 15, 14, and 13. And you have 15, 14, and 13 here as well. These are numbered. These are what are called Ruta templates. They are also what are called DNA templates for each dimension. All right? So our DNA template is the compilation of all of these Ruta templates. The Ruta templates are shields that form from the spinning of the Rouchet currents that are moving through. So you have a loop of Rouchet current that forms a movement in the energy around it, and that movement around it becomes the shield, but it's the spiraling of the currents that actually creates the counter spiraling of the shield around it. So where you have the currents coming in, it creates a deflection field around it, and that creates the shield. So you have your dimensional shields and the dimensional Rouchet currents, each coming in at very specific scales. The 0.5 scales that run here, if you notice, well, first we'll look at this, D6. All right. Between D6 and D7, you have 6.5, and that's where the Azure is located. It's like that's the center, right, of the Cathara grid. At D6, if you take this over, that's where you have deflection shield 6 and spiral 6. But when you take this over further, you'll notice that there's that 6 again. There's the shield. But they form vortices between them. The shields form the chakra vortices between them when the condition of exhale or expansion of energy outward, when the Rouchet brings energy down and then pushes it out, it polarizes where these currents actually split into two. And if you take that diagram and make another one and put it on a mylar and put it that way, you end up with this, right? Where you have this column in the middle that gives you the outer currents that polarize. So now you have what were 8, you now have the double 8. And what were the 4 inside are now 2 sets of 4 inside. When you put these all together, in between these spinning currents and their spinning shields, there forms vortices that spin. And these vortices there are 4 horizontal vortices and 2 vertical ones for each of the dimensional levels. The center point of these vortice structures, the vortice structures are this down here, where what that is in simple terms, it's hard to see in that diagram, is you've got one upside down vortice here with its small point here and its big one here. You have another going down the opposite way, that way, from the center point. And then you have 4, 2, one going out in front, one going out in back, and one going out on each side, horizontal ones. There's also 4 little inner ones that you don't see that correspond with these spirals. So we're getting the structure, like more and more on the structure of how chakras actually look. But they are supposed to be positioned very specifically and run specific currents of the Rouchet. To understand how the Rouchet spiral works a bit is when you inhale, for example. Can we move this over a little bit, honey, this way, please? Can we move this way a little bit? No, did you see? Thank you. Yep. Now, if this is in the resting state, this set here, all right, this is just showing the electrical one, the inner magnetic one, and the 2 of them together. That's the whole thing. That's when it's in like just neutral position. When you exhale, you go, that is when the polarization of these currents occurs, and the center breathing tube opens, and the chakra vortices come into activation. So that's when the chakras are supposed to go, and the chakras open and spin, and send energy out into your hologram, right? And the inner ones do the same, and when you put those two, that's the inner set polarized, and that's the outer set polarized. They give you specific center points for each one. Now these little squares here are you have the Azure, the Rajna, and the Iyumbi. All right, so they are the lock systems. If you look over here, something interesting happens on the inhale. This is the exhale when the chakras come into being through the positioning of those spirals, and that's when chakras are supposed to like turn off and on. They're not supposed to just hang there and beam. Right. And they're not supposed to just be in the front either. You're supposed to have, if you have one in the front, it implies one cone in the back, and it implies two on the sides. And they're supposed to rotate and spin with the spirals, the Rishite spirals. Chakras right now do not do this. What they do is sit there and beam. All right? Which means they're sucking energy off something and just throwing it out into the hologram. All right? And they're actually regurgitating their own energy front to back, but they're not generating any new energy, because part of the generation of new energy process of the Rishite, when it's operating properly, is on an inhale. Now remember, if you inhale, your arcs go up, your pillar comes up, right? What it's doing is taking these discs that are stretched out, and they're when on the exhale they stretch out. It's pulling them up together, one into the Iyumbi, one into the Azure, one into the Rajna. One, I believe this one goes into what is that, D 13.5, and that one goes into 13.5 below. And these get into the parallel D 13.5 frequencies and that kind of stuff. So what happens, it's like an accordion where it squeezes up, and the inner little vortices that are formed by the harmonic vortices, the four harmonic dots in the Rishite that are formed by these four, they draw energy from the standing flames that are in the voids, your density flames. And then when you exhale, that energy is then circulated out through the Rishite and through the chakras. So it's a natural circulation process. Energy is brought back in, sent up to source and out into the larger light body structure, and new energies come in. This also allows for sparking, a natural sparking to occur. Because right here we talk about the Shadi on this particular set of diagrams where you have chakra 1, where the center of chakra 1. Now see, here's the horizontal sticking out on chakra 1. And it would also have two verticals, but you don't see those because you wouldn't have been able to see anything if I put all the verticals in. So what you're seeing here are the side chakras and the front one. That circle there implies a back one, right? So if I was standing here, right, if that was my chakra 1, that would be down in this area, and I would have the two vortices coming out that way. And I'd also have the one everybody recognizes is the one that points downward, plus one that points upward and links to the spiral, the down spiral of the one above it. So it's a natural system when it's working properly. Now, in this chakra 1 area, this is the area that the Shadi seed atom from the Edonic level, from the middle domains, interfaces. So I wanted you to see what the Rishite does, how it actually forms the chakras, how the chakras are supposed to turn off and on with the natural expansion and contraction of energy, and how if chakras can't go into this phase where they squeeze up like an accordion, they're unable to draw natural energy from the flames, the core density flames that are in each of those density locks, and they are also unable to send energy back to those flames. So the circulation, if this cannot occur in the Rishite spiral and in the Ruta shields that the Rishite spiral forms, then you have a phase lock system in the chakra system, and that's what we're going to overcome with the activation that we're going to do before we leave. This will be one of 3, they said. This will be the first of 3 activations, and they wanted it done tonight. They'll let me know when. We're getting close, but it's not quite. My eyes are starting to water, and that usually means incoming something. All right, next one, please. Now we're getting to the good stuff. Almost, right? Okay. Next step is back to this diagram. Remember, that was the other half of the one you saw where it just showed all of those together. This is just showing the chakras, and this is on the exhale phase, right, where it's, and the chakras are turned on. When you take these lines of frequency, these dimensional lines on the 0.5 dimensional scale as well, over into the Cathara grid, this is the D2 Cathara grid we're referring to here, and this is the D2 body. Right? It shows you where each of these vortices, see that vortice is this vortice, right? Which is this vortice, right? This too is the front vortice of that. So you have one there, the two side ones, and it implies one behind, right? Plus it would imply one going up this way and one going down that way for each of these. So this is what your natural chakra system is supposed to look like when it flashes on with exhale and energy expansion. And then it would close up, and the little interior ones would turn on and spin when energy was actually coming back in from the hologram through those, and that's when they would exchange energy actually with the flames in the void spaces, and then circulate the new energy back out and take the old energy back up and send it out through the other parts of the light body structure through the core seed atom at the Azure. So there's a whole intricate structure of chakras. They're fascinating when they work properly. What's also interesting here is, now this is, it's hard, a little bit hard to see it, but this same size Cathara grid is being used here, where you have Cathara Center 1 is down there at the bottom end. You follow that over, and that's where you would actually have chakra 12B. Right? Follow it over. Okay? That's the bottom of the D2 Cathara grid. Okay? There's other things that we'll get into later that have to do with the ethos and eros, that like where do my feet come from kind of thing, right? Because this ends at the knees. There's an interface between the D1, the D2, the D3, and the density level embedded Cathara grids, first of all, that help to form an interface with these vortices, and that's where you get the structures that form, you know, the feet and everything from the knees down. Because there's a point, if you're getting any pain in these areas, it has to do with the fact that we're starting to clear these spaces. But right inside the knee, like right in this little area here, you might find it swells, or sometimes gets really, really sore, or even sometimes might develop what feels like a cyst in it. And you can use any of even just running Maharic seal frequencies, or especially using the K23 Lotus Touch stuff, you could actually break up cysts there just with frequency. Because what is happening is the energy systems, because of all the work that has been being done, and because of the frequencies that are running from Eartha through the aurora field into Earth now for anything that can receive any Christic frequency, we are starting to clear the messes that are in these areas. So when we get into the D2 body, all right, our D2 emotional body is what we see in the mirror as our physical body, what we touch here, because our consciousness is stationed at D3. In the mental body, we see a solid, what is exactly one dimension below, and that means our D2 elemental emotional body is what we're referring to as our physical body. And we also have within that the atomic body, all right, which is our atoms, molecules, and that level. So this is the basic chakra system. We can understand that. It is created by the Rushite spirals and the Ruta shields, the dimensional Ruta shields that are formed by the Rushite spirals. Next one, please. Oh, wait a minute. Bring this over a little bit, honey, please. Now, when certain things activate, that we are going to begin the process of activating, that has to do with activating the core flame of the core creation flame, and a lot of the technologies we're going into have to do with that, activating the Unisi, which is the first point where we actually interface in the core domains with Source, our first point of exit from Source in the inner domains. We're going to be doing technologies, I think one of them is tomorrow, we start that have to do with this. But what it will do is begin the process of these chakras will begin to blend. Right now they have seals. If you notice, the seals form on some of these, where these currents, the inner four currents when they polarize, interface in a way with some of the outer currents and their vortices they form, and they actually blocks flow, but only on some of them. So there's a whole list of seals. Some of the chakras have seals on them. These, I believe, are the chakras with the seals on them. Move there a little bit. 15A, 13A, chakra 1. There's a seal at 3.5 Ayumbi. Chakra 4, chakra 8, okay, front. Right, chakra 9.5 at the Rajna is not a chakra, it's 9.5 Rajna. And then the chakra 7, 9, okay, the front 9, which is up in this area and here. That one shares a set of seals, 11 and 14A. Now those have these ruta seals on them, and this here indicates the ones, this shows you the chakra lineup without all the mess around it, which is, corresponds to their placement there. This shows you which ones have the seals on them. Those seals are like membranes and like little lids, almost like having a piece of saran wrap or cling film over the chakra. So for the energies to flow, those seals have to release. When those seals release, through certain circumstances, one of which is when you begin the natural process of activating the Shadi, one of the first things that will occur is this. Over here, Annie, please. Is you will have chakras 2 and 3 will merge at the Iyumbi. You'll have chakras 8 and 4 will merge at the Azure, and you'll have chakras 5 and 6 merge here and form 3 big ones, right? So the vortices blend and get bigger. This is the beginning of activating the entire flame body. Now I just wanted to show you that, and you will also have progressively bigger vortices activating top and bottom as all the little inner ones start to open up. Next one, please. Uh-oh. It must be one of those. I can't remember, so. Here we go. Okay. Now, yeah, why don't you move that over just for a minute? Let me talk about these first. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, let's ease into this now. All right. All right. This again is your Kathara grid, your D2, corresponding to your D2 body right now. Okay. This is your chakra system that you saw from the other graph before. Okay. Every one of these chakras corresponds to its corresponding level of the auric field around you. So when you're dealing with auric fields, eventually we're going to plug in the Brennan bodies too. I call them Brennan bodies because she did amazing work on seeing the auric levels. Her name is Barbara Brennan. She's a healer, and she has some amazing stuff on a particular aspect of the more local multidimensional anatomy, including chakras. She shows what she sees, and she sees what is there. And what is there right now is the mutation. So if you want to look at it, you can see in a lot of the drawings she said, she will show you parts, what it looks like right now, what the structure looks like right now. What it's supposed to look like are these vortices. Well, her pictures are a lot prettier because she's had time to have artists do really fancy paintings and things, and I hope someday we can too. But somewhere in here, we will also find the Brennan bodies. They're not just as simple, straightforward, they're just the auric levels. There's more to it than that. That goes back to your Huva bodies and how they blend in the radial body and all that, so we're still working on that. But what's important to understand here, when it comes down to the sexuality issue, is you have your chakras, they're created by the Rishite spiral, which is implied by that configuration. Now, right here, chakra 1, this is the interface point. Notice where that is, okay? That's right down there, right? Where the Shadi Azure is. And that's where the Shadi's seed atom is. Now the seed atom, this is a part of the seed atom. This is called the monadic aspect. The seed atom, before anything gets to a seed atom stage, it starts as Partakai 1 and Partakai 2, and then it goes from Partakai 1 and 2 to the triad, to the Taran, to the dyad, to the myad, to the monad, which is this one. Then it goes from the monad, axis 4, to the Adon hub cell. Then it goes from the Adon hub cell to the 144 Partakai divine blueprint. Then it goes from that to the 1728 Edon cell. Then it goes from that to the 20,736 Rashala cell. So wherever you see one of these, it implies the rest of those, the little ones that go down in the center and the bigger structures that emerge from this. But right now, because this is the level that is activating, because it corresponds with the part of our own light body structure that we have just completed activation of. It was rebirthed, our natural monad level, which is called axis 4 or tachyon cycle 4, was rebirthed during the Shasta trip at Hitharo in May. And it has finished its cycle now. And we have, in the Denver workshop, we were able to activate the shari by connecting it to the activation that was happening through the tachyon cycle that finished of the outer monad. So we linked the outer monad to the monadic level of the shari, and it activated both of them, giving the monad a stronger activation and also beginning the process of opening the passages by which we can clear the sexual and genetic mutations fast, so we can do fast-track evac if necessary, which I have a feeling somebody's preparing us to at least go for a visit, because this is really soon to throw all this material at us at once. It's like there's never time to even get the diagrams done from the one before we're being bombarded with the ones, next. So this is a configuration. It's called the monadic configuration. When we see tomorrow, we go through the pictures that have to do with the star-born cycle. I will run you through those fast, particularly for the new people. You will see that that represents the monadic cell structure. It comes out of the star-born process at the fourth level. When it gets to axis 4, there are other levels that grow beyond this. So you have this structure interfacing here. Now, if that's the Azure interface for the Edon structures, for the middle domains, that implies Cathara grids are very precise. Okay, they have a very specific shape. If that's the structure, that's the middle point of that Cathara, that implies here would be the top point, where our chakra 8 is, and the bottom point would be down here where our feet are. All right, so there is a light body cell structure running behind us and through us that has to do with that 1,728 lovely colored balls that we saw that is connected. At the center of those balls, you would find a configuration, one level of it, of which would be this, and that is referred to as the Shadi, Edon, middle domain, seed atom, monadic level. All right, that is what we're activating. When we look at this, look at the cores of each of those. So we take the big light spheres off and look at just the cores. There you go again. We got that Ruche configuration. This Ruche configuration, these are called Ruta pillars. These are the Edonic level Ruta pillars. They are the root out of which the Ruches on the outer domains are formed. Now, this is the template. It's called the Edonic Ruta template. It is the template for the outer manifestation. And from the first, it is the template of the first point that we ever entered outer manifestation from the middle domains. And no matter what system in the outer domains you enter, you will always carry the imprint of that with you. Even if you entered here from another star system and not from Earth, which is what most people here. Most people didn't enter at all onto Earth here. They might have entered from Tara. But this is what we're beginning to activate. What this does is kind of neat, because these phase, which means these phase, these light cells do what Partakai do. The one here, which is a harmonic one, draws these two together, and they phase together. And when they phase together, they make sparks, quantum sparks. And then the sparks collect, and they collect in the center. So you have this set, this set, this set, and this set of the monad phasing, creating sparks, and then bringing them to the center. When you look at it this way, it's easier to see. You have this little triangle, these two spark on that line, they spark there, these two spark there, these two spark here, these two spark here. And after that happens, they bring their sparks in here and make these spark, so you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4 sparks. Then, because those sparks get sent in here and they make these spark, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 more sparks. When they spark, then it causes these harmonic ones to spark together. So you get another 1, 2, 3, 4. You get a set of 12 sparks that occur in the natural phasing of the Shadi, or of any monad, or of any monadic configuration of any level of your light body structure that has that particular configuration. When this comes to sexuality, can we shift this over, please? Now remember, this would be like a dinner plate turned on its side up here, right? You'd be looking at the edge of it. Here, you're looking down at it, right? When you're looking at it here, you're actually looking at it upside down. You're looking at the opposite end of the dinner plate from this diagram. But if you were looking from down there, right, you would see that the 6 would be in the front, all right? We'll get to the numbers in a bit, but I wanted to show you where. We just happened to use a female body because it was a bit less lines when we were first introducing it. All right, don't worry, we've got the guys there too. This shows you the configuration of the entire monad, but it's hard to see what's going on where. These are actually the structures that form the currents that circulate energy in a way that forms the light, you could call it almost like a light mesh armature, that the molecules or the atoms and the subatomic particles form on to create what is the body mass. And that applies to every organ inside of the body as well as just the skin and the shape of the body on the outside. But it's hard to see what the monadic configuration itself of the Umshadi is doing, so we just took it down to the Ruta pillars in the template. Now, you would have your main vertical current, your Ushate, coming down, and each one of its pillars, or its spirals, would anchor into one of those pillars. And that would be your natural connection. Normally, we would have a natural connection to the Idan middle domains. We would be able to go back and forth. We were designed to do that. We weren't supposed to be hijacked here, but we have been biologically hijacked, so this process doesn't work naturally. When it works naturally, it's really neat. Can you put the next one on, please? Hey, here we go. Okay, now we got the guys there too. Okay. All right. Now, I mentioned before when I showed the easy diagram of just the Ruta in the Rushate configuration through the pillars, how they spark, that there were 4 sparks that would happen when the outer ones, the octave sparks. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4 spark points. So this gives you 4 outer spark points on the body parts, and I'll read those off in a minute. All right. Then you would have the next ones that spark where the harmonics are, as that spark comes in and actually makes a spark with the harmonic pillar. So you have another 1, 2, 3, 4. That means you have another set of spark points in the body. All right. And then once those spark points go off, there's a set of, at the 45-degree angle, spark points. And they would be at the 45-degree angles on body. Both male and female have these configurations. Let's see. The 45-degree angle ones connect to what are called the Shaddai chambers that run through the plate, which means they run horizontally this way. And they create certain configurations in the body that allow for the final big sparks, which would be the 13th. You already have 12 sparks here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then you have 13, the center spark, then 14, and then 15. And when those last 3 go, they are sparking open your central vertical column and your pillar, which means they're allowing you to go into light and turn into light form and enter a state, we'll see in a little bit, the vehicle, that it's called the Christ star vehicle. Some of you have seen those drawings a bit already. But it allows you to go into a state of sati, and it's a certain type of sati state that will allow you to pass through into the Idans, like we used to, where we could go back and forth through the gardens. And when the body is acting naturally, what's interesting, too, is it doesn't just, they spark once and then pop, you go through the gate. It's a building process, just like what we'll review again tomorrow is called a tachyon cycle, which is a key generation cycle, where you have these currents and their pillars phase, they spark. Those sparks create what are called kelana sparks. Kelana sparks build up to form kelans. Kelans build up around the center and form like kelan crystals, right? At a certain point, the kelan crystals release their bonds, and they form what are called harmonic keys. This is where you will get a crystal key and what is called a kasha key. One is electrical and one is base magnetic. These keys then go through something called, what is it called? It's where they distribute their quantums so they're equal. I forget what it's called. What is that called? Do you remember? It begins with R. Resolution, thank you. That's the word. It's very late. We'll see this in the tachyon cycle, but this works the same way as the full light body tachyon cycle and the core light body tachyon cycles. Your private parts are supposed to work the same way in phasing with the Umshadi thing. So what would happen is there would be cycles of spark generation, and they would create crystal kelans and crystal keys and kasha keys. And at a certain point, those keys would release their bonds, have certain energy exchanges, and then they would reform into sets of 12 keys and to form what's called a tachyon. And a tachyon is a tachyon, T-A-K-E-Y-O-N, all right, which is what they're actually trying to talk about when they talk about tachyons that are spelled the other way, the superluminal particles. All right, it is the same thing, but it's actually tachyon, and that has to do with the tatwar, and that has to do with the creation cycle that we'll talk about tomorrow. But when the the body is acting normally, the Umshadi would stimulate natural phasing of the Rushate currents. Natural sparks and quantum building would occur. It would go to the center and store there until a certain point of quantum was built. The quantum would go from sparks to chelons to harmonic keys to tachyons, and at a final point there'd be a big bang point where the tachyons would pull in to the level behind it, right? Which in this case, because we're in the outer domains, would be the Edon in the middle domains. And our bodies are key generation plants, and that is why they were hijacked in the first place, because we are quantum generators. And when we're functioning naturally, it is a very natural process, and after certain cycles we can reach climax and we can go into a natural return to the garden for recharge and come back out again, rebirth. We could do our own little personal starfire cycle. That's what sexuality was meant to do, even by yourself. It gets really, really interesting when you combine two people, because there are some similarities and some differences between the male and female imprint. Both of them have the same configuration of the Umshadi with its core ruche-shaped Ruta template. The same would be here, same spark points. But there are different polarities, and we'll see that on the next one. Under natural circumstances, oh wait, I'm going to read these to you first too. These spark points, the spark points are a little different. Obviously, we have a little bit different biology down there. On a man, you have, okay, the first 4 sparks. Remember, they're the outer octave ones. You have spark 1 occurs at the base of the penis. 2 occurs both in male and female at the coccyx, a little bit at the base of the tailbone. 3 occurs, and I forget because it's late and I don't have my anatomy book with me, the arteries that run down the legs, all right? 3 and 4, all right, there's 4 and there's 3. These actually spark in the arteries. They spark the blood crystals, so it actually